Good evening. Welcome to Chelmsford's newest public affairs show, Chasing the Facts. I'm Sam Chase, your host, and with us tonight is Doug Bruce, who is a town meeting representative and has served on the Charter Review Committee. And I think we'll have a very spirited discussion this evening relative to the first session of town meeting anyway. And Doug, what we try to do is to when we start off the show is we try to acquaint the audience a little bit with the guests. So if you could give us a little bit of a biographical sketch, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, certainly. First off, thank you for having me, Sam. I appreciate being here, and I appreciate what you're doing, bringing the issues to the fore like us.
Thank you.
I've been a Chelmsford resident for 20 plus years now. Originally moved from Los Angeles, California. It was a great place to grow up, but I didn't want to raise my family there. So Chelmsford was a great place to move to. I have two children who were born here in Chelmsford, went all the way through the school system. My daughter now is a freshman in college, and my son is a sophomore in high school. As a matter of fact, I just ran over here from the high school where he's playing volleyball tonight.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
So we'll see how that goes with the junior varsity loss tonight, but varsity is a strong team. I have a commitment to the community. I appreciate the idea of service, and so that's what prompted me to get involved. I've become involved in the community through the typical, the usual avenue that people do, through the kids.
You're right. That is the typical avenue.
Yeah. So starting, early on, elementary school, either youth soccer. I was an assistant coach for a while I did a coaching stint in t-ball, of all places, helping the kids swing the bat and run around the bases. And my family is very musically inclined, so our volunteerism eventually turned towards music in the community, and we helped out at McCarthy at first with the McCarthy Band Booster Association, and then got involved with the Chelmsford Friends of Music. So I've spent a fair number of years helping out wherever possible there, and I'm sure we'll talk about volunteerism in the community and things like that.
Well, I know your daughter is very musically talented.
Yeah, she sang actually the national anthem at last year's 4th of July parade.
Correct. I remember that, yes, and sang very well, too.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
So, well, certainly 20 years or so in Chelmsford, raising your family, you're definitely invested in the community, especially as evidenced through some of the volunteer activities that you've mentioned. The first time you and I met was, I can't remember how long it's been, but it's probably at least, 5 or 6 years maybe?
Oh, I think it's closer to 10 or 11.
Maybe 10 or 11. Well, let's see. I've been on the Board of Assessors for 11 years, so yes, it might be.
It was probably 08, 09.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And the way we first met was you showed up at an assessors meeting, and we welcomed you and thought, who is this guy and why is he here? And you said, I'm here because I want to try to understand something about how the assessment process works in Chelmsford.
Yeah.
And we all looked at each other and thought, this is akin to somebody walking in and saying, I think I'll sit and watch paint dry for 2 hours, right? The assessor meetings are not that stimulating. It's kind of dry.
Well, it's interesting, though. My thought process there was Chelmsford's revenue, or the money that we have to spend in Chelmsford on the students and on the seniors and all the public service programs. I think the town manager said on your show a couple of weeks ago, 70+% of that money comes through the assessor's office. Yep. So if you want to know where the money's coming from and where it's going, you go to the source.
I think that, and given your engineering background, I would expect that kind of an approach from you. And you're right, that is a good place. Obviously another good place to learn is Finance Committee, and that's how a lot of people come up through the ranks.
Yeah.
You at some point you decided you were going to run for town meeting rep. So how many years have you been a town
Finishing
meeting
up my second term as a town meeting rep, so
Okay,
6
so
years
six
ago.
plus six plus years.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good investment.
Yeah, my wife encouraged that.
Oh,
you
she
know.
did?
Yeah, I'd stay home and complain about this or that, and she said, "Well, don't just complain about it. Get involved." I said, "Oh, okay,
That's
I could do
right.
that."
Well, you can watch the town meeting and you can yell at the TV, or
Yeah.
you can, as you say, you can jump into the fray and participate.
And, my very first town meeting was during the sewer pump grinder
Oh, the
issue.
grinder pumps.
Yeah,
Yes.
the grinder pumps.
Very contentious issue.
And I felt strongly about the issue, and it was my first or second town meeting. I actually got up and spoke at the microphone and said my piece. I even submitted an amendment to the article, which was voted down.
I actually remember that.
Ah.
Yes. So, well, it's often been said that the town meeting certainly can take issue with the warrant articles and so forth, but in the end, they usually get the right answer.
Yeah.
And I think, relative to that situation, I think they got the right answer. So yeah, we'll that's the way it's worked out.
Yeah.
One thing you did do very proactively is you signed up for service on the Charter Review Committee.
Yes.
And that was an activity that went on for about a year and a half. So I'd like you to, if you could, just give the viewers a little bit of a flavor as to what that was all about, and perhaps your role on and how you felt that process ultimately worked out for the town.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier somebody coming to the Board of Assessors meeting is like watching grass grow. Getting involved in the charter review process is like seeing how the sausage is made. You don't want to know how the sausage is made. You just enjoy it when it's cooked on the grill.
Correct.
No, actually, my interest in that stems from the fact that it's an activity that needs to get done, and actually, I think it's a privilege to get to review the rules and laws and regulations that govern us on a regular basis. Having grown up in the second biggest city in the country, Los Angeles, your ability to affect anything going on in a big city like that is nil. But here in a community like Chelmsford, all politics is local, right? You have an opportunity to impact things, and when you see an inequity, straighten it out, or make things work more smoothly. And given my professional background, that's my modus operandi is how can we make things work better? How can we make things more efficient and operate more smoothly? So that's what drove me to be compelled to throw my hat in the ring. As a matter of fact, before even being involved in that, I had met Selectwoman Pat Wojcik on several occasions at some other events in and around Greater Lowell. The regionalization effort, the effort to build a new Rourke Bridge across the Merrimack River.
Right.
We had bumped into each other here and there. So that was the drive behind it. And as something...
Did she encourage you to apply?
No.
Okay.
I think I just applied.
You just applied,
Yeah.
right.
Now, the application process, for those that aren't aware of how to apply for a board or a commission, you simply go on the town website and look for open positions, open volunteer or board and commission positions. As a matter of fact, at each Board of Selectmen meeting, every 2 weeks or every time it's scheduled, they have a list of all the open positions. And that list usually turns over in June, every June, with commensurate with the fiscal year. So if there's anybody out there that wants to get more involved in things going on around town, there's probably going to be openings. There's always some turnover at the end of the terms.
Right. So now you're on the Charter Review Committee.
Yeah.
Was it what you expected?
Yeah, actually,
Okay.
you know, my wife gave me once for Father's Day a copy of the U.S. Constitution, a pocket Constitution.
Okay.
Right. So that's kind of reading the Constitution is fun. So reading town charters and understanding how town government works is I find interesting, right? Because it does have a local impact. And let's face it, over the last 8 or 10 years, Chelmsford did have its fair share of things going on and controversies and things like that. And I feel that having the opportunity to review the town charter, it would be important to have an impartial person as part of that process. You know, when it comes to local government, you can have partisan issues take center stage, and you see it, for instance, with the chicken issue recently. I stopped by Town Hall the night that the Board of Selectmen was going to be talking about the chicken initiative, and you couldn't find a parking space anywhere. You couldn't push your way in the door. There were so many people there. It's a hot button issue, right?
Correct.
But you don't want the town charter to be ruled by hot button issues and people looking at the charter with vengeance in their eyes. So my idea was to apply to that and approach it kind of cool hand Luke, if you will. Try and be level-headed about it. And to my delight, I found 8 other committee members on the committee who approached it in a very similar way. I didn't find the participants of the committee to be partisan or having any axe to grind or anything like that. So all in all, I found it a very rewarding experience to be able to contribute in that way and know that those contributions are going to be there, you know, in the town charter for years to come.
For 10 years anyway.
At least,
because
yeah.
the review cycle review cycle for charter review is every 10 years. You're absolutely right. We started off with 9 committee members, and then we had a resignation slightly 3 or 4 months into the progress, and we were not able to get anybody to apply for the open position, even though we lobbied the selectmen to really do some outreach and try to get that 9th member. I was a little nervous in the beginning because I like to have an odd-numbered committee in case there are tie votes, and then the chair can break the tie, which is normally the way it's done. But it did work out well, and you're absolutely right. Usually on a committee, especially one that size, you get at least 1 or 2 people that come to the committee with an agenda.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that was not the case.
I didn't sense that at all. And I love the diversity in the cross-section that the community had. We had people on the committee who attended or graduated from Chelmsford High School in that very building.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, right. Dan Burke was a graduate of Chelmsford High School while it was at what's now the town hall.
Yep.
We had people who had served as selectmen, we had people who served on the finance committee, and we had people who this was their first committee assignment, myself. So it was a wonderful cross-section of the town, diversity of male and female opinions, and people newer to the town, townies were on the board. So
right.
I felt the committee handled itself with aplomb, and I believe that the Board of Selectmen appreciated the effort. And
I think so. Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah.
As we got into it, and we'll get into a little bit of discussion about town meeting, but the first thing that we addressed was the actual structure, the government structure in town, which is, of course, representative town meeting and what we came to characterize it as strong town manager form of government.
Right.
And the committee felt right out of the gate that they did not want to disturb that arrangement, that they felt that was appropriate to continue with that.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. Yeah, we heard that. We heard that sentiment expressed many times. The real hot button, though, was the sections was the section of the charter that related to the town manager's power and authority and the methodology for hiring and terminating a town manager. And that became somewhat controversial. The newspaper, the Lowell Sun, did a couple of articles on that, and I think the 2 or 3 meetings where we covered those particular sections in depth were actually quite well attended, and a number of folks came to speak on that. And relative to that particular exercise that we undertook, or that particular section of the charter that related to the town manager, you found yourself in a little bit of a situation, and I wonder if you could explain exactly what that was and how you went about resolving it.
Sure. So about 8 months into the process, no, actually 11 months, I'm sorry, 11 months after being on the committee, my wife, who was a stay-at-home mom while our kids were young, had gone back to school and finished up her bachelor's degree, which she had started but never finished. So she was, at that time, on the cusp of graduating from UMass Lowell and was looking for an area to do her final project on, not a thesis, but her capstone project. And her interest is in legal studies, and she was doing a paralegal minor. So she was looking around, and an opportunity came on our radar screen. Actually, I spent a lot of time on the Mass Municipal Association website, and they have a jobs board. And so we saw a job posting in Chelmsford for a position, and it was right down her alley, and it was right in her neighborhood. So she nervously threw her hat in the ring for this job, and I believe there were maybe close to 100 applicants for the position, and she got the job. But that presented me as a member of the committee with what I was concerned an ethical issue. She was going to be working in the town manager's office, and I was serving on a board that was looking directly at the rules and regulations around hiring and firing the town manager.
Correct.
Let's see. So my spouse works in the office under the direction of somebody who now I have the legislative recommending authority of hiring and firing from a town charter standpoint. So, I mean, we recognized the situation for what it was right away. And at this point, I really have to give a shout out to the state ethics office. There's a state ethics hotline, and I called the state ethics hotline, and within half an hour was talking with the lawyer on duty, or the lawyer of the day, ethics lawyer of the day down in Boston. And rather than it being, you must do this or you should do that, it was very much a two-way conversation. I felt heard, where they listened to what the situation was, gave some thoughtful consideration, and we talked about a couple of different ways to handle it. You know, from one extreme to the other, one extreme being do nothing and just serve out your term, the other extreme, resign from the committee. And neither of those really seemed right, but I think we arrived at what ultimately the direction we went in was I abstained from voting on that one section of the charter that was pertinent to the town manager's hiring and firing, which is Section 4 of the charter. Section 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7 were all still applicable, and I provided my input for all those sections, but that one section, Section 4, I abstained from any votes on.
And I think that was the right thing to do. My impression at the time, if I remember correctly, I think you got advice from the ethics lawyer that you didn't have to be quite that restrictive.
Yeah.
But you decided to go the extra mile and err on the side of caution, because part of the situation with the conflict of interest law is it isn't just what can happen, it's what
The appearance
it's
of
the
impropriety.
appearance of
Yeah.
a potential impropriety. So even if there's nothing wrong, it could look wrong to somebody looking on who maybe doesn't understand the totality of circumstances. So you elected to go with a more restrictive,
More conservative approach. Yeah.
conservative approach and recuse yourself entirely from that Section 4.3
Yeah,
review.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have no regrets. I still feel to this day that was absolutely the right way to go. So I was advised to fill out a financial conflict of interest disclosure form, which is a standard state form for those types of situations, and submit that to the appointing authority, in this case the Board of Selectmen,
Correct.
who appointed me to the committee. And at the time, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen and I had conversations back and forth, and the board was happy with the way it was handled, and I was happy with the way it was handled, and I believe the CRC chairman was happy with the way it was handled.
Yes, he was.
The inside joke is that Sam was the chairman of the Charter Review Committee. And actually, in the end, I think the other committee members were appreciative of it.
Yes, they were.
I had one committee member in particular kind of rally to the cause and tell me afterwards, I respect the way you've done this, and I would encourage other people to handle it in a similar way.
Well, yes, and that's exactly right. And you were proactive. I mean, you didn't take the action you did as a result of being told by the committee chair or anyone else on the committee that, listen, this is what you've got to do. I mean, you made that determination on your own, and you proactively sought the guidance, which just bolsters the credibility of the situation. Yeah. So we did appreciate that.
One other thing I wanted to maybe just highlight about that, when it comes to conflicts of interest, there's very clear guidance at the state level as to what constitutes potential conflicts. So we're in the thick of town meeting right now, and some people might wonder, well, gee, there are school teachers, there are town employees who are also town meeting reps. How can they get away with a potential conflict of interest there? Well, the state has said that serving as an elected official as a town meeting rep, or even appearing at an open town meeting, if you're in a town with open town meetings, is explicitly not a conflict of interest in that one circumstance.
Correct, and I think the rationale for that is the basis is open town meeting. There's only, I think it's 35 or 36 towns in the state that use the representative form. The other towns are open town meeting. Yeah. So I think that's the basis for that rationale. It makes perfect sense. So you're right.
I had the privilege of attending an open town meeting in Concord.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Recently?
No, this was back 5-6 years ago, because I wanted to have a flavor. No, actually it was during the committee. I wanted to have a sense of what open town meeting versus representative town meeting. It kind of comes down to doing some due diligence as a committee member as to what these different structures or forms of local municipal government are. So I had gone down to Concord, where they have open town meeting, and spoken with a few of the members there. I had to get special permission to be in the room in the open town meeting format. I had to wear a special button that signified me as a non-voting member of the public. But it was more kind of a Wild West type of attitude in the open meeting.
And Concord is right on the line. They have a population of about 17,000 people, so that's pretty weighty for open town meeting. If you go to a town like Carlisle or Dunstable, where the population is, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 people, I think it's more manageable. So
it was a packed house.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah, definitely. Well, getting into the discussion of town meeting, and of course, as we started off by saying, we did not recommend that our structure be changed, so we still have the representative town meeting.
Absolutely.
And we had our first session of the spring town meeting Monday night. Do you have any thoughts on what has happened so far?
Yeah. Well, the issues Monday night, always start out with committee reports and other miscellaneous issues like that, and then they transition into the school budgets with the Neshoba Tech and Chelmsford Public Schools. That can be a contentious issue, and I know there was some bones of contention Monday night, with respect to what we're voting on and what we're allowed to discuss within that context. State law is pretty explicit in that town meeting is not a governing body of school issues. The school is its own authority and has its own governing body, the school committee and the superintendent of schools. So basically a town meeting, we're an up or down vote on their budget. And I know there are some people that want to, feel very passionately about the issues and want to discuss things there at town meeting, where our ability as town meeting reps to impact things at the school level is limited or virtually non-existent. It is a thumbs up, thumbs down kind of vote on that budget.
And to a lesser extent on the municipal budget as well. We can't, as town meeting reps, we cannot get up there and present amendments that essentially remove specific things from the budget.
Yeah.
We can
withdraw monies.
We can take monies out, and we can say, okay, we want to subtract $70,000 by amendment, and in the back of our mind we can have, well, that equates to this one position maybe that we don't like. And assuming that the town meeting would adopt that amendment, then the town manager would have to take the $70,000 out, but there's no guarantee that he would remove that position.
But that brings up a great point in that, and this was a theme in our Charter Review Committee too, right? I believe that government is at a point in time where there's a lot of laws. There are a lot of rules and regulations that we're, as government entities, responsible for, and professional management at the school level, at the municipal level, and I believe representative town meeting is a part of this. That there's so much complexity involved in the issues nowadays that it requires a degree of specialization. And as a representative town meeting, I believe that's what the RTM format gives Chelmsford. Is we've gone out and asked 162 people, hey, there's complex issues on the table. I want you to take a look at these issues and vote on our behalf.
Right, and I think you're absolutely right. Chelmsford is roughly 34,000 people, population. The issues are complex. We've got a municipal budget, which includes the school operating budget. It's getting close to $140 million annual budget.
Yeah.
This is a lot of money. It's a very complex situation, and it requires that people spend some time to try to understand the issues. And I think generally they do. I'll leave you with one last thought, and that is that this year, the annual budget was approved, but we had 31 people vote against adopting the municipal budget, and that's unprecedented. That's never happened. Any thoughts on that? You have about a minute.
What's interesting is it seems that many of the decisions we make at town meeting come down to the personal level. We may feel strongly that it's better to have a person in one capacity as opposed to another capacity. Given all that, we have almost over 700 employees in the town, and to try and pick and choose that individual level of where the right headcount belongs is a difficult issue. And that brings me back to the professional management. I believe Dr. Jay Lang, working at the school district, has many different responsibilities, and he does his best to satisfy all those responsibilities.
I think you're right, and I think the same thing can be said of the town manager. They both are very diligent employees, and they demonstrate continually that they're working in the best long-term interests of Chelmsford citizens. We may not see it that way on individual issues from time to time, but as has been said to me many times, town meeting is a messy situation, but they usually get it right.
Yes. Yes.
Well, Doug, thank you very much for being on the show, and we've had a very nice chat here, and hopefully we've been able to provide some information to the community
I hope so.
on the town government structure and town meeting. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
See how fast that goes.